This episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet. I can do this in a basement. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. So if you can help out, we do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to, and all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on, and goes towards keeping the internet on. So please, if you can give $5, $10, $20, it doesn't matter. Anything you can is so appreciated. And if you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you can reach out to me and we can talk about how you can be a sponsor. But I'll let you get back to the episode.
Welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Now, more people definitely don't know you as Nick. What is your handle like that you go by on Instagram?
The dark side of the spoon, dark side spoon.
Now, that's a great name. Now, are you on just Instagram or you do Facebook too? Or
I used to have a Facebook and I had 100,000 followers and then I got zucked. So I want to start a new one, but like if I start it from scratch, it's just going to be so painful to see where it was. And so I keep procrastinating.
Yeah,
but it's going to happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, and even Instagram has gotten better with their rules lately, like allowing certain things that they would take down a year ago by having people check off in advance that they want to see content like that. That's something that I've noticed.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I learned, I want to just keep it private just because it's helped with a lot of that. But even then, man, you never know. And I'm very cautious. But sometimes I'll post something and then it'll get flagged for something you wouldn't even think. And then you'll, so it's
and
always
sometimes it'll be something stupid like in the description and not even in the picture.
If somebody, if somebody's mouthing off in the comments or something and offends someone, I don't know, man.
And that happens real fast, especially with a bigger account like yours, where like you get busy, you have a job, and then all of a sudden you look back at your phone and you're like, "Oh, I didn't even know that was happening in the last hour,"
Yeah.
So, right. And when did you start making these like recovery memes? How long have you been in recovery, and when did you start making them?
Yeah, man, my clean date is September 7th, 2015, and so this September I celebrated 6 years, man.
That's amazing. Every year you get more and more. That's awesome. And I can tell, like, you work a program just by your memes. I can tell you understand what the programs are just by your memes.
Well, thanks, man. I mean, one thing that I try to get the point across is like the behaviors and everything we do in active addiction is not only insane, but it's just like horrible. Like we are horrible people when we're using.
Yeah.
Some people are even horrible people clean,
Yeah.
But common denominator is like you got to get clean to give yourself a chance. But just there was nothing at the end of my using appealing about anything attached to the lifestyle. But I've been there, and so, I posted this meme where it was like a guy throwing up, and then he was like, she's dope sick, and then it was her throwing up, and he had a sign saying she's pregnant. And the person who was in the photo reached out to me and was like, "Hey, what's up with your page? Like, can you take it down because I don't really understand." Apparently, they had a family member who follows my page who was like, "Aunt, look, this guy remixed like your photo," and she looked at it and she said, like, do you guys advocate drugs use or something? And I was like, no. So an outsider saw that and their opinion was like, and she was like, no, I'm looking through the post. It does look like you're, not advocating drug use. And anybody who's using drugs, I hope that if they're looking at it, they can tell that it's not like a pro using drugs.
And for what it's worth, man, I was looking through my phone last night. I couldn't sleep. I got like crazy insomnia. And I was looking at my phone last night at my early recovery pictures. You know, I started my recovery journey 3.5 years ago out in LA. I went all the way to LA to get sober. And so, you know, memes are being shared like crazy. And I never even looked at any of these kind of memes when I was in addiction. You know, I spent 10 years in active addiction, and a ton of that on my phone. You know, I always joke around like old timers don't understand what it's like to stare at your phone all day waiting for someone to call you back. You know what I mean? Like the old timers run around for cell phones and their addiction. You know, they have cell phones now, but they don't understand that. Like when you're staring at your phone, waiting for it to ring or get a text saying, come through or I'm good. Yeah. And so I was looking through old shit last night, and I was looking through a bunch of memes, and I realized that all the memes that I had saved were from the first 3 months. And they were so like important to me because besides being in the rooms, that's where I was seeing shit without having to go somewhere to see something, if that makes sense. I could hear a message without having to go to a meeting or anything like that to hear a message, you know? So I loved those kind of memes early on. I was hoping I found one of yours. I was hoping that I had screenshot one of yours 3 years ago, but I didn't. I looked through and I was looking through watermarks.
I probably didn't have my own. I mean, maybe my watermark, maybe a meme I made. My old watermark was NAB, but
okay.
You know, I was making memes, but I didn't have like a page or anything. But yeah, you made a good point. People sometimes are like, they think I'm like an active addiction, but based on like the way I can sum up the behaviors and the thinking of active addiction. But it's like, you know, it's going to be a lifelong thing. And you made a good point of like, you know, when I was using, like the last thing I was doing was going to be on social media. Also I had like a cracked Cricket phone, you know, with a cracked screen, no
new phone
data.
number every week.
Yeah, a new number, you know, a cracked screen and no data. Do you think I'd be fucking wasting my data on?
I wasn't going on any social medias, dude. The only social media I would go on is like Tinder, just because I was so lonely. You know, besides that, I wasn't going on Instagram and all that stuff when I was in the thick of my addiction. I didn't need to see anybody be happy because I was miserable.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have experience with Tinder. I would just go to rehab. You know?
See, I only wanted to do a one and done with rehab. So I was a one and done, 31 years old. I did not want to like be in and out of rehabs. I was asked to go so many times in my 20s. Everybody was asked. I was getting arrested all the time, the whole nine, you know. And I kept saying, no, I'm not ready. I would give examples to my parents. My parents are normies, and I would tell them, look at blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. They're all relapsed. They all went to rehabs multiple times because they weren't ready. I will go when I'm ready. Let me try this on my own. And if it doesn't work, I will let you know when I'm ready for help, because by then I will be ready and it will work. And it wasn't, you know, talked about. They knew, you know, they would yell at me sometimes, you know, if they saw me high. But like 31, almost 32, I was finally like, all right, now I'm ready. And I think that's why it worked a lot better.
Yeah, you probably bought a couple months with that argument.
Yeah, you know, I definitely did.
I mean, you know, through the stages of change, what stage were you in, would you think? Pre-contemplation? Contemplation?
I wasn't ready. No, okay. This conversation happened, I can tell you, in 2013 in June. And it was right after I got arrested for theft. I was house sitting for my old manager, and I was on a lot of Xanax. Xanax makes me steal. So I stole a bunch of his wife's jewelry, pawned it, and I got arrested at my house for it. Don't even remember doing any of it. You know what I mean? So I got, you know, I was in my parents' basement at the time, you know, and this is like, you know, unfinished basement, you know, the whole 9 yards. And they're like, you're just going to sweat it out. What?
Yeah, share that shit in the mom's basement.
Yeah. 31 years. Well, this time I was 27. And, but still.
You know what, Alex? We like to round shit up. So you're basically 30 in mom's basement. It's all right.
Yeah. And I moved out at 19 too. And here I am back at 27. And, you know, so they're like, all right, you're not going to go to rehab. Then you're not leaving our basement until you're better. And I said, okay, fine. You know, one of those things. And then I was like, in my head, I'm like, well, I got a doctor's appointment in 2 days that I'm not missing. You know, I was doctor shopping in 2013, and I didn't have a car, and my mom was home all day long, so I snuck out of the basement. I had my dude that was getting majority of my script pick me up around the corner. He took me to my doctor's. Luckily, Walmart had him in stock, filled it. I was back within an hour and a half with 30 pills because I gave the other 90 to my dude that I owed him. But still, I was high again within 2 days with a brand new script and a brand new script of Xanax, because that's what I was also re-upping on. It wasn't stopping me.
So you reset the time. What did that basement smell like?
The washer. My mom was running clothes all day long. My sister was in high school. My mom was constantly running that washer and dryer down there. It was concrete floor, mildew, you know what I mean? Like I was born I was in South Jersey, 2 miles from Camden. That was where I grew up. Like that's, you and I met through Brian. Brian's not far from where I grew up. And it was all just coincidence. Like I met him through TikTok, and he's like, oh shit. Like he's like, you're wearing an Eagles hat. I wonder if he's from my area. And sure as shit, he's like 5 miles away from me. So like, it's so funny. Like actually my studio is named after my best friend who passed from a car accident. And they were in the same grade together in the same high school for 1 year. That wild, like small world, dude. So
well, yeah, synchronicity is part of my
that's what
higher
the program is. Yeah, man. That's what the program, and that's what happens when you reach out and you're connecting with people like in recovery and active in your recovery and living your recovery out loud. You know what I mean? The people that are willing to put themselves out there and be like, this was my story, this is who I am, and this is what I do. Because I understand people that can't do that because they chose career paths where they can't be like, I'm whatever, I'm an addiction, or I'm sober, or I'm clean, and blah blah blah, and they have a lot of shame and guilt with that because like maybe they work in an office setting where everybody goes out and they can never feel like they can go.
Yeah, man. I that's definitely true. And then I've seen it on the flip side where there's dopeless hope fiends ruining the treatment industry, just ruining the rooms, coming in there fucking with their vape and their fucking shirt that says fuck heroin on it, and then they relapse within 3 months, and they like, God forbid, they scoop up some newcomer girl to go with them. Because like one thing, that phenomenon is really interesting to me, because like we're so broken when we come in that it's easy to just be like to become anything, like just to your whole personality changes. And it's like it's sure it's better than trying LSD for the first time and then being like, I'm gonna go on a tour and I'm just gonna go to every Grateful Dead show, because that was a psychic change. You talk to old timers, they like compare how many Dead shows they went to.
Mm-hmm.
And like they took LSD once, they moved to California, and like, or you get clean and you become a dopeless hope fiend.
Yep, and I met some of those dudes that actually migrated to California in the '60s when I was sober in LA, because the recovery in LA is amazing.
Yeah, I anywhere there's a lot of drugs and a history of drugs, there's good recovery. And why is that? Well, because it's like the yin and yang. It's the negative energy and then the positive energy out of it.
The best NA meeting, best CA meeting I've ever been to was in Compton. It was
I went to one CA meeting one time, and everybody talked about how they smoked crack and hid in their closet and called the police on themselves. I related to it. I've done that, but just like people would be like, cocaine. Oh, cocaine.
Yeah.
Like everybody would just say it.
Yeah, and it was by candlelight. So all you hear is the voices chiming in. You don't see any faces because it was like a Friday night meeting, and it was called Into the Fourth Dimension. And like the room was set up weird. And so you would just hear the voices and the chiming in all over the room, but no faces to it.
Oh, Neil. Oh, no. Looking at with that cocaine. Yeah, it was interesting, man. I'm not knocking.
Yeah,
I'm of Narcotics Anonymous, and always been. I can't talk about my problems pertaining to alcohol, but luckily here where I live, like it's a great fellowship. Other parts of the country, people tell me what it's like. Like if you want to buy Suboxone and methadone spitbacks, you go to NA.
That's crazy.
You know, over here though, like I didn't have that experience, you know, growing up in the DMV outside of DC. But you know, it's
I'm
but
trying
the point.
Good.
Well, I think I need to make another point is like, you know, you're clean and you're discovering things. You're open-minded and you're checking out different fellowships as opposed to, you know, just checking out different plugs out of desperation.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the same desperation, but it's like you're doing an action step of finding the solution as opposed to just getting well, you know. And so, you know, doing a podcast like this or doing anything creative, whether it's TikToks or anything that you're talented to do, is proof of getting inspiration again, which is like an active addiction. We lost all hope and inspiration. There was so you know, I've done a few podcasts before, but you know, people write books, anything's possible. Anything's possible. And how do you tell that to a newcomer, like who just lost everything and has no hope and probably no dopamine, some burn holes in their fucking Nike shorts?
I can tell you what I do, and that's I make myself vulnerable to that newcomer. I show that newcomer how vulnerable I am and tell them where I came from so that they can feel comfortable opening up to me. It's like, you know, when I first opened this meeting center, it was July 4th, and a guy came in, 31 years old, a week out of rehab, and for 15-year meth addiction, you know, since he was a teenager, just every day, didn't work. He was a bit on disability since he was 5 and has been doing meth every day for 15 years and went to rehab. So I get him fresh out of rehab and he sits down. He's like, I'm not sure what I'm doing here, but my girl won't, you know, let me stay there unless I go to meetings. I don't like, you know, I don't know what I should do. And I'm like, well, how old are you? He's like, I'm 31. I said, I was 31 when I got sober, man. I was like, what kind of program are you trying to run? He's like, I don't know, but I have a medical marijuana card. I said, so do I. He said, do you really? And I said, yeah, I went to California. I went to a rehab called High Sobriety. It taught me all about how to use cannabis as a medicine and not as a drug. And it completely changed my relationship with it. He's like, oh, how much time do you have? I'm like, well, you know, I had some problems with drinking, but I haven't had, you know, opiates in 3.5 years. He's like, oh my God, I didn't know that was even possible, that you could even do that. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm proof of that. Like, and I still haven't had a drink in over 20 months. He's like, holy shit, you know? And then now he's 4 months clean and sober. Most time he's ever had. We're going through the steps together. He's been a great sponsee. He just had his 5th kid, and it's the only one he was allowed to be around really because of all the other drugs before. So, you know, it's one of those things where I made it okay for him to open up. And then he was really quiet. So I kept just telling him more about me, really like not embarrassing, but like dark things about me, you know, from my past that I'm okay with sharing, but it just takes me a minute. But when I did that, he then started telling me where his trauma came from, you know, and opening up for the first time in his entire life, where he's now able to make amends with people and look people in the eyes for the first time in over a decade. And it's that vulnerability that I gave him by opening myself up first to let him know that it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay not to be okay. So like that's how I handle it. What do you say to a newcomer that comes in that is completely lost and just lost everything?
I mean, the kind of like what you said. You know, say you're not alone. I've been there. It's kind of hard to it's kind of hard to relate to a newcomer in the sense of like we're where we are now. But one thing, you know, I've seen go the wrong way is some people come into the rooms with such heavy baggage, such heavy, you know, mental illness. I know I certainly did. And, you know, to pretend to be somebody's, you know, I tell them I'm not your fucking banker. I'm not your therapist. I'm not your case manager. You know, some people are lifers in the system, man, you know, and the good news is this is completely your responsibility. Nobody's going to give a fuck.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to care about. I don't care what Disney movies you saw growing up or like, you know, or you know, Disney Channel original movies. the world is a horrible place, but this is a pretty good place to get clean, America. And it's all up to you, man.
Yeah.
That's what I say. And, you know, I'm not your therapist. You know, I would recommend treating this like an experiment, staying clean for a long time so you can unveil the trauma. But, you know, like for me to wear a Dopeless Hope Fiend shirt and a Dopeless Hope Fiend hat, blow vape smoke in his mouth and be like, bro, tell me your trauma. Like, I'm not a fucking licensed clinician. You know, like, I've seen it both ways, man. But I'll be a part of the network because, you know, the opposite of addiction is the isolation, you know, connection, which is, you know, what people pretty much crave, you know. So seeing that people who, you know, they can relate to clean by just showing up, being a good person, the attraction, not promotion. Now, marijuana, medical marijuana, like, you know, I don't have any like opinion on that. I just know that, you know, marijuana, you know, makes me horribly anxious, and I wouldn't treat it as medicine personally.
Yeah. And it affects everybody differently, you know, and that's the thing is anybody who's really ever smoked, you know, that it does things to different people too. You know what I mean? There's like, I was engaged to my childhood best friend and she was bipolar, schizophrenic, and an alcoholic, and she couldn't smoke because she would have, you know, episodes. It would trigger episodes if she did smoke because she already had an imbalance and it wasn't going to fix it. It was going to, you know, magnify it.
People are so vulnerable when they come into treatment, or of course the rooms, that you know, it's like they have to find it for themselves and nobody's going to give a shit.
Yeah,
you
my
know,
addiction's different than yours, just like my recovery is. But the point is, I'm living a life today that's beyond my wildest dreams still.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if your quality of life is improving, and you know, I mean, nobody, you know, it's all up to me. Like whatever I choose is not you or anybody else, and it's scary to be a newcomer and be told like, this is all up to you, man. This isn't like nobody's gonna give a shit. Like, unfortunately, like if somebody overdoses and dies, which is happening left and right, you're gonna just be a fucking Facebook memorial page, and the people you didn't even fuck with are gonna comment and be like, oh, that was my best friend, and then they had coffee with them one time, and you know, like, you're gonna be looking down like, dude, I didn't even fuck with this person, you know, like these, like, you want to fuck around with fentanyl and shit, okay, you're going to be a Facebook memorial post and no one's going to remember, like, no one's going to give a shit. It's not going to make anybody do anything.
And for me, it's also reminding people, especially new, about the unmanageability, because everybody, when they first come into the rooms, they think because they're told from people who are normies, the first step's admitting it. It's not. They're really summarizing that first step a lot when they're saying the first step's admitting it. Because to me, that first step means everything after that semicolon about how my life became unmanageable, right? That unmanageability of what it does for us is when things are really a problem too. Because like my life could be completely unmanageable because of a relationship. That's something I need to work on. You know, my life could be completely unmanageable because of my job.
Oh yeah, recovery has nothing to do with the drugs, and you know, we're fucked up people, man. We're sick. We whatever reason, whether it's nature, nurture, or what our uncle did to us, you know, or like our trauma, we're here and it's our responsibility. Like I said, you know.
So for that creative outlet with making memes, what was it about it that was like for you that was like that kept you going and making memes all these years? Like where people, were you getting a good response? Where was it?
Well, yeah, initially, you know, I just wanted to be part of, right? I just, like, you know, would make a meme and then get bullied and everybody was like, that shit sucks, kill yourself. And, you know, and it was like, damn, I'll do better, you know? And then, like, you know, it was always about how it made me feel. Cause, you know, I'm an addict, you know, if it didn't make me feel good, then I wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
And so, response though is definitely compounded the progression into what it is now. But yeah, it's therapeutic, man. Like most of the time I'm telling my story. A lot of the times it's just kind of remixing
You're telling your story. Was that your Thanksgiving? Was that your grandmom's Thanksgiving that you told earlier?
Yeah. Well,
that shit was funny.
Right. I wasn't grandma, but that's all I'll say. But like, I'll 10 years ago on Thanksgiving, man, I'll tell a story of one of my like bottoms, man. Like I remember I was selling drugs and my mom and grandma were having Thanksgiving hosted, and they wouldn't let me around each other. They wouldn't let me around the house, but I told my mom I'm gonna help, I'm gonna clean, I'm gonna help rake the leaves, and I worked hard for like a week or what I thought was, and I went to Thanksgiving just totally trashed on and also on speed, which I didn't really do much because I had to clean, rake the leaves, and I got everybody stupid little presents. Like I was completely in a psychosis, and my mom ended up throwing me out. And I remember crying out in the front of the yard with the hose and just hitting, and I took the hose and I just started hitting the window while they were all eating. And then my friend picked me up, and I just remember bawling, like just crying because I worked so hard to like impress, or what I thought, but I wish I could tell more stories like that, but it's just so much involved in a paragraph, so much pain.
Yeah, and I don't even, war stories are war stories, you know what I mean? And they take it out of a lot of people, and I get that. And I don't have people on to, if I let people talk, and when people feel comfortable,
Yeah, but that was, that's real shit. I've never, told many people about that, and it was just a series of moments like that just slowly got more and more closer together over, like you said, 10 years. I was, active, user of hard drugs for 9 years, and so like there's all those, I can glorify like the thinking and everything, like in a war story, but there's a lot of pain in those memes are like ingrained,
well,
but
like
now I can.
Yeah, and I get that too because when you say creativity, it's actually funny because I was creative in addiction. I was doing stand-up comedy in addiction. So I was constantly writing jokes, going on stage, doing new material. However, the last 2 or 3 weeks before I went into rehab, I was sharing without knowing I was sharing, right? Like I was going up to these open mics and with no material, like I didn't write anything for that night. And I would show up to the open mic and I was basically sharing. I could even find a joke from like 4 years ago where I said, I am JD, I'm an addict. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong room tonight. And then, as like a way to open, like I was opening shows with I'm JD and I'm an addict. And I was sharing about my day because my day was always hell because it was always I'm an addict. But I was doing this as a joke, on stage. But really, I'm like crying out for help.
Well, I mean, that's right. I mean, that's why we make jokes and stuff, because we're, it's our defense mechanism, instead of crying. I mean, we have, even in active addiction, I mean, I was pretty creative sometimes. Like I would take a bunch of speed and be up for 3 days with my friend, and we would draw pictures of like half naked women, and we would compare, and we got really good. We'd be like, like we just be working on art, and I'd be journaling.
For me, I was trying to escape addiction with laughter. And the thing is, I didn't know that I didn't, you don't know what you don't know, right? So like I didn't know that I forgot how to laugh. And I realized that like 2 weeks into being in rehab and I'm dying laughing at something and my stomach hurts from laughing. And it's the first time in, since I was a kid that I was laughing with my stomach and not with my head. Meaning, because like I can hear a joke and know, yeah, that's funny, and I can force the laugh, to prove that I know that's funny. But to laugh like truly with your stomach, that's something you don't feel until you get sober again. And it was one of the best feelings that I got. And that's why I was really kind of chasing that with like memes and stuff like that back then. I was always screenshotting and sharing. I made one. I made one meme.
Well, you get it, one thing, yeah, all that. I can completely relate. But then also, like, when you stay clean for a while, you'll see, like, wow, I'm a people pleaser. Like, I'm sending these memes out to people that, like, because I want a reaction. Why do I want this reaction? Like, the longer you stay clean, like, the more that's really.
This episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet. I can do this in a basement. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. So if you can help out, we do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to, and all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on, and goes towards keeping the internet on. So please, if you can give $5, $10, $20, it doesn't matter. Anything you can is so appreciated. And if you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you can reach out to me and we can talk about how you can be a sponsor. But I'll let you get back to the episode.
That's why it's so important to start the journey, because it's just going to get worse. You got to see what the hell's going on underneath.
So September 7th, you said, was your date, right? Now, what was going on for you September 6th, 2015?
Oh, man.
Sorry, I'm curious, man.
No.
There's an inciting incident, or there's always something where there's like an aha moment, a moment of clarity. There's always something that where your sober date starts isn't usually by accident.
Nah, man. It was just the complete, just such loneliness, anger, resentment, hate, just jealousy, envy, just all the bad things that not only 12-step fellowship talk about, but just anything biblical, or, all the religions, just such hate, man, first of all, to myself. But yeah, man, thanks for asking. Like, and I want to just say it was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I'm so grateful for it today. I wouldn't be here without all that. So I want to start by saying that, I went to rehab in like 2014. I met a girl, and, I wanted to stay clean just as much as like I want to be clean today. Just the same focus, but like I was codependent completely. I met a girl, and, shit went south. She started sleeping with my friends, and then my best friend, like my brother, and like I did not have the tools to be able to take it. Also, I get arrested. I'm waiting to go to court. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was on bond. And the sad part is, like, even though I didn't want to use, I was like buying drugs just to like get closure with her. Just complete, like, well, I know the words and terms now, but I didn't have the tools to face life, but also I didn't have the tools to make better decisions. So like active addiction summed up as like making horrible decisions and then not knowing how to face the consequences at the same time. And then there's a cognitive dissonance with your own psychology where it's like, fuck it. Like, this is life. And it's just, the world is so small.
Yeah.
And we don't see a way out because we're such self-centered, pieces of shit, or we act like it. We're good people deep down, talented people, funny people, with so much to offer the world. But we make these horrible decisions. I'm talking before we got into drugs. We make these horrible decisions, and then we make horrible decisions to cover up those decisions, and just shit compounds. And so the only way to psychologically survive it is to adapt a mindset of it doesn't matter anyway. Does that make sense? At least that was.
Yeah. I mean, you got me here.
So
yeah, because I
like,
could feel that because that's how I felt too. You know what I mean? It's taking me back to that.
It's a self-induced Stockholm syndrome, man.
Yep.
You know?
And it literally rewires our brain. That's also the thing too. And the longer we do it, the more we do it, the more our brain's being rewired.
Well, right. We know about, how drugs, affect the limbic system and take over, inhibit the executive function of the brain.
Now we do. Now, and I didn't know that shit when I was getting high.
Well, I did.
I didn't.
Yeah, like, think about it. We had the obsession, man. Like, I personally knew all that. I like I was talking about earlier with the psychic change, man, of like putting on a Dopeless Hope Fiend hat, and I'm Mr. Recovery now because I don't feel good about myself. I have to wear a shirt. When I was 15 and I got into drugs, in 8th grade, I was reading books like Harry Potter and Holes. The second I smoked some fucking swag, I was reading all the beat writers. It was an instant psychic change. Now, I didn't understand the implications of it, a little political, a little, people adapt the punk rock mentality. Like, everything is designed to like capture your energy, man. And where are you putting your energy? We're so vulnerable as inundated with pop culture, and like, I could find defense mechanisms and rationalizations depending on what movie I'm watching of how to live, because we don't have that. And I'm saying we, but I'm talking about me.
No, I get that. Yeah, I always say we, and I mean me too.
And what I'm saying is, I had a psychic change when I found drugs. Where next thing you know, they get harder and harder, and and then it starts the process of taking over my executive function. But why did I have such a void even before I discovered these substances that are the best feelings on the earth, right?
Well, that's where the work comes in. I didn't know why I drank. I didn't know that I was drinking alcoholically until I got sober and I started doing some reflections, and I was working a program, and I realized, okay, I had my first drink and drunk at 11. My first friend that died was 12. And then I distinctly remember saying to my best friend when we were 12, hey, we could get drunk and we'll feel better. That's alcoholism,
Well, it was for me, it was like, not only I was proud of these, it was my personality.
Okay.
So like, I dove in head first.
Yeah.
I tried mushrooms at 15 for the first time, and then I said, I'm going to grow them. Like, my mom used to find marijuana plants in the backyard. And I would say to her, Mom, if I liked wine, you'd find grape trees in the backyard, right? Because like,
you're such a manipulator. You're manipulating her.
But it got me out. It was the obsession, right? Yeah. I always had obsessions outside of drugs. It just turned into that, and because they relieved the pain. So the obsession. And so when I heard, a word like that in recovery, no psychiatrist, no psychologist, nobody put it to me like that. You have obsessions, and that kind of clicked with me. But like, it was the obsession. It was it was a complete psychic change in the wrong direction. Yeah. So it was my personality, it was everything. So you talk to some of these, younger folks, it's, other people might want to be like a financial guru on Wall Street, and they have this social network where they want to, do other kind of things. But why was I so vulnerable to pop culture and I give the example as the beat writers, because like, turns out half of them are like chomos, and they fuck children, and wrote about it. And they're like these bastion gods of like a certain, and you don't know any of this. Plus, like, William S. Burroughs, his son was a way better writer than him, so I can read it clean now and be like, whoa, like, why was this you know, it's like when you smoke weed for the first time, next thing you know, I'm a fucking Bob Marley, you know, but I'm a Bob Marley.
Yeah.
Like,
See, I
you know,
never
those
got
people,
into, I wasn't into weed in high school as much. So I was a drinker, man. I drank. I was obsessed with drink. You were obsessed with all the other stuff. My obsession was in drinking and partying and being the best drunk. And yeah, I owned it. My nickname was Mess. You know what I mean? Like,
right,
you don't have a
love
nickname of
it.
Mess unless.
Yeah, right. So you like succumbed, and to survive that like to survive mentally of being such vulnerable with connections and developing social interactions, and your brain's developing of how to relate to the world, and to survive socially, you allowed, not like you didn't understand it, but you just became Mess, right? It was just because, you know, if you didn't accept it and embrace it, then what does that mean? So that's what I mean by like,
It means I'm not one of them, and I wouldn't be able to hang out with my, and my friends that, was so important to me,
right,
and exactly, it was trying to be part of, I was
right.
trying to fit
Well,
in and trying to be
we're
cool.
all just trying to be part of, man. Still to this day, like, you know, like I wanted to be, part of a certain, you know, level of decisions making and stuff in my life now. And, you know, like you're seeing the same patterns of what you want, what you're obsessed with. I'm seeing the same. So recovery has taught me, like, you know, to see the same patterns, but I feel connected to the world now, as opposed to being in a little box,
Yeah.
with like a child, like, and I certainly, there was nothing like when I got clean this last time, I never had a craving or a trigger. And I say that, and I don't know, like, I don't know why that is. I have PTSD from active addiction. Like, and it wasn't as bad as like you could imagine, but like it was the worst thing for me when I was sitting in jail for a year, and people were talking about, oh, what they're going to do when they get out. And I literally, my brain would disassociate and I would go the other way. I was scared. I'm still so frightened. When you talk about like, uh, so I never had a craving, but it took me 7 years to get 1 year, so I was in and out, in and out. But
That makes sense. So then you went into jail September 2015.
yeah, I went, so September 7th, I went to the psych ward, and from there I had warrants and they transported me to jail, and I was there a long time, and it was the greatest thing forever. Like, so, and also with that stuff with my old friends, like, that situation, if I ever run into them, I'm going to thank them. I literally, even though for years I was spitting on them and had such envy, and I hoped I'd hear that like horrible stuff would happen. And that anger drove me to be where I am, but it's not going to keep me here.
Yeah.
So in recovery, like I've learned how to be grateful and acceptance, and then have gratitude for the pain, where that's the measuring stick for dealing with life. Is
Speaking of
where
this, yeah, that's speaking of this time of year, the gratitude. I never heard that word outside of Thanksgiving until I got clean. You know what I mean? Like, I don't remember ever hearing the word grateful or gratitude unless it was Thanksgiving.
and if
All
you
the
did, and if you did, you wouldn't feel it.
No, it was some bullshit thing of somebody saying,
Yeah.
"I'm so grateful for this award. Thank you to the Academy." It wasn't anything that I was saying with conviction.
Well, also, I mean, also growing up and going to elementary school, there's these posters of some dude in fucking neo booty shorts climbing up the side of a mountain, and it's just like dream big. Or
yeah.
or of course Martin Luther King, or just these posters around of this, and I just didn't, I couldn't, I couldn't relate.
That
I
makes
just
sense.
anger,
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean. So when you walk in and people are like gratitude and grateful, and it's a little scary.
My first 10, we had to do 10 step in our rehab and our in treatment. And I didn't even know what a 10-step meant then. I just got to rehab and I'm not even in a meeting yet, and they would call it 10-step. I'm like, what the hell is that? And they're like, you have to write a list of all things you're grateful for today. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, every day we do our chores and then we write a list of the things we were grateful for that day. I'm like, every day we have to write a list of things we're grateful for? The hell is this? And then, a week in, I got so much out of it every single day because the difference is I wanted to be there. So I was taking all the suggestions, right? I didn't need to be there. Nobody was telling me I had to go. So I wanted to be there. So I was taking everything and I was absorbing everything. And I was a sponge of tell me all your secrets. I want to hear everyone's methods. What are you doing?
Right.
It's your ninth time here. Why? Why is it your 10th time? What did you keep doing? That kind of thing. And it was paying attention to how people talked about their recovery compared to how I might or other people talk about theirs. And just really sitting there and being a fly on the wall and just paying attention. And I took so much in. And I think that was the best thing I could have done was just shut up and listen. Like I did enough talking, now I talk all the time. But then I need to shut the fuck up and listen because I didn't do anything and they might, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly, I can relate. I mean, I was just scared. I was just a scared kid is how I felt.
Now, did you get into meetings when you were in jail? Because they bring him in.
Yeah, they would bring him in. And the sad thing is I knew a couple people, from being in and out. And there's nothing more embarrassing or going to treatment and seeing people, they're like, we're praying for you, bro. I remember this guy, Alex, he follows my meme page and we're good friends and he's a local dude. And I remember he came in and he saw me. He's like, yeah, man, we're rooting for you. And and I just was so ashamed, man, to be there. And sometimes like, instead of using dreams, I'll have dreams where like, I'm back in rehab. And, I'm seeing people who are in the treatment industry like Nick, and
you know why? I know why.
Why?
Because I have done this like deep dive on using dreams and it's not a using dream. No, that's my point. Yeah. So using dreams are most addicts' nightmares, right? That's their subconscious worst nightmare is to relapse. So now for you said it yourself 5 minutes ago, right? You haven't had any kind of triggers in years or any kind of thoughts or cravings. So your subconscious isn't afraid of that right now. What your subconscious is afraid of is you being inside of your industry that you work as a resident. That is your worst nightmare. Not the not the relapse, not the overdose, not the using, because that you're so far away from that your subconscious isn't even on its mind. But you work there, so you see it, and you never want to be that new person. So that's why it's your nightmare.
Thanks for sharing that, man. You're probably 100% correct. And, I wish, at least in the next one that I have, that I at least get high first. Like if that could happen, then, it'll be a successful using nightmare.
Yeah, because that's personally, I've talked to a lot of people about those things because it scared the hell out of me. So I was asking, like I said, I would ask everybody, and even on my episodes, I ask a lot of people about that. And
but also it's like, why is that so important to me? So it's like, oh, it's the ego and it's, being, so it's like, what's the meaning of that? Right. And, I had the same suspicion as you did in your thesis. And it's just like, why do I care? And it's getting better. Right. Like, but there's certain things that were really important to me, patterns and defects.
Is it you're living too much in yourself and not like, because usually when your ego creeps up, you're living too much for yourself and not others first. You know what I mean? Like whether it's in the last day or the last week, that's what I've found for myself. Whenever I start having those kind of like subconscious thoughts or dreams, whenever they pop up in succession, it's always because I'm always living with for myself first. And I don't expect you to give me an answer because you don't need to, but that's usually for me. What happens is for my ego to grow is because I'm only caring about what's about me and not about the whole big picture. not about the whole family or the whole business or whatever.
Right. No, it could be. I mean, I've never been organized enough to, correlate, for example, like, before I got on medication for antidepressant medication, somebody suggested, you just do a log. What are you eating? Kind of things like that. And I've never been organized enough to be like, oh, I had this dream and this happened in my life a few days before. But I believe in stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I really love Carl Jung, and a lot of his theories about the subconscious. And you might definitely be onto something and continue to develop. Carl Jung. You never heard of Carl Jung?
I'm going to be looking into him soon, that's for sure.
Oh man,
that's the whole point of this, man. We network, we learn something new. I might say something that you're going to get, like we said earlier. That's the whole point of a meeting. You pay attention because there's always going to be something that you can take away, and that person can take away too when you're willing.
Well, right, and how you arrive at the willingness is most of the time it's through pain.
Mm-hmm.
That's certainly the case for me, man. I don't look at anything unless there's pain. I have blinders, and a lot of people are like that too. But there's certain in making mistakes, you can kind of you have to like, learn, like, and making the same things over and over and over. It's staring in your face, and then the decision to change is yours and completely your responsibility. And I think that was the coolest thing about recovery, because like it's like my clean time, man, is the most important thing to me. Like it's the biggest achievement I've ever had for somebody like me, for example. So like it's completely up to me. Nobody's telling me to do this.
Yeah,
like I'm off probation.
Yeah.
But like
I can't wait to celebrate my first birthday. I mean, I haven't had a drink in 21 months, but I haven't had a first birthday yet because I don't want to give up my sober date because of my ego, because my sober date is leap day, 2/29. So I get a birthday every 4 years. So I get, you know what I mean? Like a true birthday once every 4 years now since I quit drinking on leap day of 2020. So yeah, like that kind of stuff you hold on to, because that, I think the little things like that mean nothing to anybody else, it can mean everything to you and make it more personal for you. And especially that blinders thing that you said is so important, because if you think about it, you're in the DMV, so you know about horse racing, right? You guys got some big horse races down in Baltimore. So like, think about those horses in those races, right? They wear blinders. And they wear blinders because if they didn't wear the blinders, they would trip over their own feet because they would be watching what everybody else is doing on the sides of them. And that's
a good metaphor, man.
That's how I feel about this. I can't worry about what that person's doing in their recovery or how they work their recovery. I can get messed up.
No, I mean, you're making some very good points. Also, horse is apparently slang for heroin, so I can relate to that more than the fact that horse race around me. But yeah, like that was a big issue for me a couple of years in, was looking around. When you get like 3 years, 4 years clean, you start looking around and you're like, everybody's full of shit. and like I can say that now because I joke and say I'm an old timer now, because I have over half a decade. Us addicts like to exexaggerate.
I know. You find any way to like over half a decade, you're at 6.
Yeah. I'm in my second half decade.
Yeah.
Especially how I tell people. But the point being, like, I ran into that too, man, looking around and just being like, these people are full of shit. But why did I even come to that conclusion? I realized early on that, like, like I said, with the psychic change and vulnerability, although my behaviors and personality and everything are pretty the same, like going through life, but like I'm still looking around at like what other people are doing because I need like a framework.
Yeah, and I don't want to inflate your ego or anything, but in my opinion, nowadays, since everything is not a lot different, but like drugs are different, things are different, technology is different. In my opinion, I would consider you an old timer because I can at least go and talk to you and you understand the drugs that I would be talking to you about more on a different kind of level of like what I was doing or where I was going or why I was going. Like it's harder for me, like I said earlier, about like talking to an old timer about staring at their phone. They don't understand what it's like to turn off your alarm or turn on your alarms for certain people to call you, or like I had certain ringtones for certain dealers. This way, they would always ring through my vibrate and wake me up in the middle of the night if they were good all of a sudden. Ridiculous shit. And I always think like it's weird to me that somebody who was like buying coke or dope back in the 80s, they were just showing up to a spot. You know what I mean? They couldn't like do all of that. They couldn't send the text messages and then sit and wait in a parking lot because they're staring at their phone for 6 hours looking.
No, they would probably just show up to the block and probably get stabbed.
Exactly.
They couldn't just send a bunch of texts. They would probably, I mean, I would have. If my plug told me on the corner and fucking hop on one foot, that was the most important relationship in my life. I still about the plug like that's like Jehovah. I still have a cognitive dissonance about my relationship with the plug.
Yeah. So you got close to yours like I did?
Yeah, I mean, because it's like that Stockholm phenomenon. You got to, your brain has to adjust. It's like people in abusive relationships. You have to embrace it, or else like you will suffer. So your brain, our brains are designed to not have trauma, man. For example, if you were to close your eyes right now and take a breath and imagine a shot of heroin, your brain would kind of remember. If you were to close your eyes and try to recall and physically feel the worst dope sickness of your life, you can't. So our brains are kind of designed to work against us in that sense.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense to me. Yeah.
So we remember only the good. Our brain's designed that way. Sex, food, the next one, and it's a survival mechanism. And of course, the trauma will rear its head and maybe using dreams or relapse and in treatment dreams, or but.
And you brought it up. You nailed it for me, because I talk to people like, we don't have Al-Anon or any Nar-Anon, but we have like, families for addiction, that kind of thing, meetings at our place. And there was a mom here, and that relationship thing that you said, that's what I used, because that mom said, I don't understand that my kid can't stop, getting high. He's been shooting heroin for 15 years, and I don't understand why he won't stop. And I said, have you ever had a boyfriend that your parents didn't like? Have you ever had a boyfriend that, your parents said, we're not going to talk to you if you date that guy? And you would say, no, you don't know what it's like when we're alone. He's so good to me. And you always remember the good times from the toxic relationships. And you forget the times that he hit you. And you forget the times that he told you were a piece of shit. And you forget the times he almost made you die, but you remember all the good stuff. And that's why you stuck around. And then she started crying. And then she was like, for the first time in 15 years, I can sympathize with my son, because I do get that. I do understand that feeling. I said, that was just a toxic relationship for us. And for us, it's hard to find the bad until we can get far enough away. I said, it's like being on the Titanic. When you're on the Titanic, you don't realize how grand it is, especially as the shit is going down. They were literally sinking, and they were still partying and playing the music, and you don't even realize how big of a catastrophe your addiction, aka the Titanic, was, until you get better perception and get further away from it. And the further away, the bigger you see of a mess that really happened down there was. And that's how I feel like that was.
Yeah, I'm loving your metaphors, man. Metaphors are a great way to give the same perspective in a different way, in a different delivery, and I really appreciate your use of metaphors. I have one. People who are heroin users are now fentanyl users. I mean, I feel like an old timer saying back in my day,
we shot dope. We shot heroin horse.
Right. Proudly, and
I watched Requiem for a Dream, and I knew there wasn't fentanyl in those. He lost his arm.
I was Harry. My life was like that. It's like, okay, oh, you're the coolest guy in rehab. Great. But like one of the metaphors is like, if you've ever, had a lot of abscesses or infections, like, that was a big part of my story, where, people in active addiction are just an infection, meaning like they're an abscess, meaning like they if you look up how biologically an abscess works in your body, is it just builds and grows and maneuvers through the path of least resistance, and that's what we do. I can certainly be an abscess outside of drugs, where I'm just doing what's easy in the path of least resistance. So that made me think of that when you were talking about metaphors. There's so many. I mean,
and the metaphors, anybody can find a way and twist it and find something, and that's you're supposed to. It's right. You need to do though. Yeah.
You just did a verbal meme by a metaphor. A meme. So, and I'll give you another example of like, for example, that psychic change I always talk about in pop culture being like such a synthetic piece of shit, like a cancer. I'll give you an example, like, being, sometimes I'll go to meetings where somebody will know I make memes and they'll be like, oh, you're the meme guy. And I'm like, I asked for it in the sense that like my behaviors, but I remember being the drug guy in high school or whatever. And when I go to meetings around here, like, everybody knows me from, that I make memes, but they know me before. So I don't impress any of them, and God bless them. But, I'm like the meme guy. And then it's just like, oh man, I don't want it. So, I don't like, it's kind of like bittersweet, but the coolest thing is just connecting with so many different people from all over the world. And, people really relate to it, and it really helps me. And, I'm really proud of, just sharing my story, and it's mostly first step, I don't really get into anything too heavy, just the insanity, and hopefully, people will relate and feel like, of course they're not alone, but like, what do you do? I'm trying to think of like, what could I have done to reach the person I was before it even, and I was so proud of it. So like I was unreachable. Unreachable.
And you're definitely reaching people now, because, what's funny is when I went to follow you the other day, and I saw that 2 people who had been on my show before actually already follow you, and they don't even know each other. They're random, So it's funny that you have these people all over, because I can respect that, because they have to reach out. I'm sure you get DMs like, keep it up, or this helps, or I love this, or blah, 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 or the comments, like you're helping people.
I answer each one, man.
That's awesome.
I mean, I just remember, like, you asked what that last week was like. I mean, I was in an absolute psychosis. And I remember a friend came over to buy like some Klonopin, and I was at my dad's house, and my parents were battling. They were fighting over like the house, and I would sometimes trap out of it. And, but it was kind of like I could do whatever I want there. So somebody was coming, but there was electricity, but no cable. I had horrible phone reception. And he came over, and he was like, yeah, so I want 3 Klonopins, and they were 2 milligrams. So I think he was $15, something like that. And he came in and he sat down, and I've known him since I was like 13, right? And he looks at me and he goes, I have $10. Is that cool? Like I only have $10, and I'll give you 5 later. And I just looked at him and I said, you just want Klonip? And I just was like in tears, and I just pushed like 30 to him. I was like, just talk to me. Just please don't leave. Like seriously. And I started bawling, and I just said, this is like what you want. And it was just, I had the worst feeling of alone, like ever. And, and of course he was like, yeah, sure. And he just sat with me. And then like 10 minutes later, he kept looking at his watch, like, I gotta go though. And just like, there's nobody to call, but I had people to call, like good people. Right. But, just locked in that,
those people that you could have called were going to tell you things that you weren't ready to hear, or you did not want to hear. Yeah,
probably.
Or that's why I didn't call them. I know that. That's why I wasn't calling those people. I was calling the people that were going to let me complain about my day, and that was it.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. Those are the people I was talking to. Was whoever was working. I was functioning. Remember that was different. I was functioning. I was running a business while I was, doing 8 to 10:30s a day. So that was a difference. I had to be on my phone to talk to like my people. I ran a plumbing business that guys were calling me. I was talking to customers all day, dealing with like other kind of shit all day. So I was constantly on the phone doing that. But inside, I was like that house that had nothing inside because it's been stripped. You know what I mean? The last thing I want to ask you is, what do you say to that person who's maybe new in recovery, getting through the holidays this time of year? Because like a lot of people are new for recovery this time of year. They didn't see their family last year because COVID or whatever, and now they're going to be around a lot of family this year. What would you say to that person about to go to a family dinner or for Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's?
This is up to you. No one's going to give a shit. People might be disappointed if you use. Some might be like, like you might have your uncle who's just like, you can just drink, right? I mean, this is just, people don't understand you, and it's not their responsibility to. You have to act out a new way of thinking. You have to behave a new way of thinking. And so what I would say is treat it like an experiment. Drugs and alcohol are not going anywhere. If anything, they're becoming cheaper, more readily available, more socially acceptable. But, for me, as a sentient human being, I outlawed drugs for myself, never say never, but, I just treated this as an experiment psychologically. And just then I got better and better evidence.
Yep.
Of like this be working for me. So when I would go into those early family situations, I mean, I remember I was on work release and went to my, I'm Russian. We have Russian Orthodox Christmas. And, all my Russian side of the family is, like they party, but they're very good, responsible, just normal people. And, then the next one was easier and it got easier, and it's just like practice. It's like working a muscle, like saying no, having boundaries, and like you just say no, not knowing why or whatever, but just for like live in today, and hold on to whatever beliefs that got you there. And I'm the type, I don't go under peer pressure anymore. Like when I made that decision in jail, nobody could faze me. I felt more self-esteem not using because I was the using guy. So I got a little like validation from not doing what I did, as opposed to just, so, it was simple for me. Yeah. And I'd like to say like when I said that I've never had cravings, I remember one time, I make memes, and I Photoshop, I'm searching for things on Google Images all the time, and I remember I was making a meme about kratom, or however I've never tried kratom. I've never done that in my life. Probably will never do it.
I've never done it and will never need to or want to. Yeah.
I'm just gonna fucking do heroin. Thanks, you know. But I remember I was, you know, doing a meme about kratom, so I have to search for it, and I'm like, ooh, red Bali, Meng Da. I'm like, this shit looks kind of cool, you know. And then I'm like, that, you know, I'm a fucking addict, you know. And
yeah, like that's what they wanted you to say. Like you fell right into their thing of like, oh, we're gonna make them say, look how cool we are.
Years clean with some shitty fucking, God knows how it's processed, you know,
fucking
like
sold out of a gas station.
Yeah, it's just like
that's how you know it's legitimate.
Yeah, and it's like, that shit looks pretty cool, you know. And then I remember, no one's gonna give a shit if I tried kratom.
No, I won't touch that. And so funny because in PA, the gas stations are filled with CBD now, like flour. It's CBD, and it's like, why I would never, because you know what I mean. I don't know what they're putting in that, because right now there's literally no regulations in the country for CBD or Delta 8. Delta 8 is legal in the entire country and sold out of all these gas stations. They can be putting whatever they want in there because nobody is testing it. The FDA is not testing it. FDA is saying that's agriculture. Agriculture's like, no, that's the FDA, and there's no like board that's overseeing anything until it's legalized. So everyone's pointing fingers and no one's actually doing the work.
But that's a good metaphor though or you have to maybe find a metaphor into that of like, it's totally up to us. Once again, just because something's socially acceptable or legal or did a drugs schedule class ever stop us? You know, whether it's, you know,
it might have enticed me. You know what I mean? It might be like, that's a step up.
Oh, well, like, yeah, when we're in 5th grade and then the dare Scruff McGruff comes and
how old are you?
I'm 33.
Okay, so yeah, I'm 35. So okay, you would have to be in your 30s to understand the whole dare and Scruff walking in.
So for listeners who want to know what I'm talking about, I'll describe it. So Scruff McGruff, it was a guy in a suit. Maybe you would identify it nowadays for millennials as a furry. Yeah, so Scruff McGruff came in, you know, to my class, and he was like, hey kids, you know, don't try this. And he had this suitcase, and then he opened up and it was all the drugs, and he was like, don't do this one, definitely don't do this one, wink, you know. And I'm just like I don't even know, I just want to play soccer, you know. I don't even, you know, I don't even know what the fuck
you don't want to do heroin because it's going to make people feel, you know what I mean? It's like, are you a commercial?
Well, I don't have anything to, you know, I grew up in nobody in my family's an addict.
Yeah,
you know, so like I'm just like, okay, but yeah, Scruff McGruff. But later on, you know, I don't know if they were trying to like get the new generation hooked, but that dog gave us the wink and said, definitely don't try this one.
That dog gave up.
You know what I mean?
Maybe in your head that he winked. A lot of things we tell ourselves, like, hey, he gave me the wink, I'm gonna go drink now. He gave me the wink, we can go drink.
Yeah, I subconsciously saved that in my head.
Do you have a Scruff McGuff meme somewhere floating around?
Yeah, I'm sure. Had I made a Smokey the Bear?
Okay.
So it was like advertisement, and it was like, only you can prevent overdoses, and it was him applying Narcan to, you know, instead of a campfire, like 2 campers in the woods probably made a suicide pact.
That's fucking amazing.
Yeah, it didn't do too well, but like,
it doesn't matter. I liked it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It was like fun for me to make, you know.
That's the point. People don't understand is if some of these flops that I have, you know what I mean? I have so much fun making them and editing them and finding the right song to put with the story that I'm, you know, whenever I'm putting out a promo or something, like what I sent you with him telling that story about getting that DUI, right? I needed a song. And then my process, like, all right, what song goes with drinking? All right, Say It Ain't So would be perfect. And then I'm playing it. I'm like, oh, what would be perfect is that if it says Say It Ain't So, right after he says he hit a cop. This way it kind of rings in with the song. And like, I don't care who listens to it. I did that. I created that part. I put them together. I know that. And I love that. Whether it gets a million views or 20 or 100, I still love going back and watching some of that shit and hearing the music hit perfect. I'm like, yeah, like, you know, it's for me as much as for anybody else.
yeah, it's doing something outside yourself that's creative, man. And as a lot of addicts are creative people, they I always make memes about the guy who has the fucking guitar,
At the
and
party.
he has a fucking guitar and he's like, hey, I'm gonna play Santeria, oh my god,
I
how
always
many
think of
or
Animal House. Animal House, when John Belushi grabs the guitar.
right,
And he grabs the guitar for the guy, he starts smashing it against the wall
yeah,
and shit until it's in pieces.
yeah, that guy was so fucking annoying, but he could play, there's talent.
Yep. So, but yeah, I know what you're talking. People have been, that whole guitar thing. That guy with the guitar has been roaming the colleges and roaming the street for 50 years, 60 years.
No, from 18 to 26, because then he's off his parents' insurance. and state-run treatment centers don't allow people to just bring a guitar in because they don't give a fuck.
Nope. No, they do not. Nope. Mine was, we didn't have I wasn't in a state-run one because they were cool. The guitars were in there. Surfboards were in mine. Like, we had a garage filled with a bunch of random shit. And there was a shitload of surfboards that were left there from people before. There was guitars. There was bags of clothes. It was wild how much leftover shit was in that old rehab. So, I mean, the rehab's it was only been there 2 years when I got there. So, LA, they have them in houses. The rehab you go to is in a house. It blends in with the neighborhood. You don't even know, you're in a rehab, the one I went to. Like, it was
you're in a rehab. Your insurance thinks you're in residential by the amount they bill per day.
Yep. And they definitely were pulling a fast one on my insurance because my sober living wasn't covered through my insurance because it was cannabis. Cannabis was included. So they would charge my IOP extra for me to have the discount because they were charging me through IOP. That's how they were able to do it with insurance, was through IOP. And then I had to pay rent for the house. Yeah. I had to pay rent for the house cash. That's right. What it was. Sober living was cash. And then my IOP was through insurance. It's been years now.
But you had to go to the IOP to live in the house.
Yes.
Of course.
4 days a week.
Yep.
And LA traffic, it took an hour to get there, hour to get home. The fucking worst. So, yeah, we were in Westwood right by UCLA. So, and we lived on the west side by Santa Monica. And it would be an hour in rush hour to get there and back. So that was fun for about 4 months. But luckily, I was done and home by my 4-month chip. So I got there April 25th. I was home, I think, mid-August. I think there was a death over here, and then my dad needed me back for the business and all that kind of stuff. So I came back, and been going good since then. I had a little slip of drinking for a little bit, and where I wasn't sure I was an alcoholic, right? Because I went to rehab for pills. I wasn't going to rehab for AA. I was going to rehab for pills, right? And then I got tricked into AA in a good way. I'm not complaining about it, but the only time we left our house was to go to an outside meeting. They would shove us in the druggy buggy, the dope fiend limousine, whatever you want to call it. They'd shove us in there and take us to a meeting. So you get excited about leaving and going to a meeting now because you're out of the house. And then if you're me, I'm paying attention and I heard a message and I heard myself up there and I said, okay, maybe I am an alcoholic. And then eventually when I stopped going to meetings, the whole deal, dude, you stop going to meetings, you stop talking to your sponsor, that whole thing. And eventually you're like, maybe I'm not an alcoholic, and you drink. Mm-hmm. And, and then I was controlling my drinking for 9 months, never overdrank at all or anything like that. And then I woke up hungover on leap day and I realized I drank a bottle of Jack and I said, well, I wasn't supposed to do that. So either I drink more, I get high, or I never drink again. I had the coolest sober date ever. And here we are. So, it happens how it happens. We figure it out how we figure it out, man. The important thing is you and I had a great conversation today. I appreciate you hopping on, dude, and, being, talking and opening up and talking about everything we did, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I hope that more people find their own pathway and heal and make better decisions. And then, the evidence of that is, doing really cool stuff that we never thought we would do.
Yeah, I never thought I'd be doing this, man. I never thought I'd be talking to people. I talked to people in Australia. I have a girl from Scotland next week. I didn't know I was gonna be doing this, but I love it. I'm embracing it.
Dude, I was in England for 3 weeks, and on my 6th year clean, and I went to a meeting with Brutal Recovery. Page, and I met her at a meeting, and she took me out. I've made friends, all over the world.
That's
it's
amazing. Yeah, that's living the promises, man.
Yeah, shout out to Straight Pepper Diet, my homie Brian. I love him. That's my ride or die, day one. And shout out to all the other people making content. Brutal Recovery. Suggest you follow her. And yeah, man, just stay tuned.
And the people that don't know you already and that aren't already following you, if you go in the description of the episode right here, I'll have the link to your social. This way you can go and check out his content too. So thanks again, man, for hopping on with me and talking and all that. And we'll talk again soon.
Anytime, man.
All right, let's see you, bud.